On this Friday, we welcome back in our Royal Insider, Patricia Treble, for a Royal Roundup as we head into the weekend. And we're going to start off with Tony Bennett, with the news of his passing, because he had a real connection with the royal family.
He performed lots of times. He met them all the time. Royal Variety Performances, which is a huge charity function every year, and he was always there. And he talked about how much he loved the Queen. And of course, they died at the same age, 96. And one thing he talked about, he said, like her, he wanted to work as long as he could. And of course, she worked as long as she could, and he did the same, because they loved what they were doing.
The work ethic of that generation.
Oh, and the style ethic of that generation.
Yes.
I mean, we were just talking about it. I mean, just exquisite style.
Yeah. I mean, is there a photo of Tony Bennett where he's not in a suit, in formal attire? I think he had that in common with the royals too, right?
And I think it kind of rubbed off on anyone who performed with him, because they had to up their style, because otherwise you look like a bit schlubs compared to him.
It's a good point, and he will be missed, as we mentioned off the top. Such a legend. Tony Bennett passing today at the age of 96. Okay, meantime, Patricia, we got reports that court documents show that Prince Andrew actually had meetings with Jeffrey Epstein while Epstein was under house arrest, and that contradicts what Andrew had to say in a prior interview?
Yeah, so when Andrew did his blowout interview that destroyed his reputation, basically, he said he hadn't met him when he was still serving all his time. He was under house arrest, Jeffrey Epstein, for being convicted of being a pedophile. And they've got court documents, and they've got basically Epstein's diaries saying he was meeting with and talking with Andrew. And it's just one more nail in the coffin, I think, for anyone who thinks that Andrew is going to come back and have full-time working royal duties. That is simply not going to happen, because these things just keep coming out in court, more and more court documents.
Okay. Moving next to Harry and Meghan. It looks like they're going to be spending some time apart.
So there's lots of unconfirmed reports swirling about those two. And I emphasize the unconfirmed reports. Treat it all with a healthy dose of skepticism. So you've got them living apart, maybe they're separating, stuff like that. What seems to be clear is that their work lives are diverging. So she signed a huge talent contract with one of the big agencies in Los Angeles. There's talk about her bringing back her lifestyle thing, TIG. But the thing about Harry is that there's talk that he's going to be doing a documentary in Africa for Netflix. Now, they've got a big contract with them, and that kind of makes perfect sense, because he loves that continent. He has spent an enormous amount of time over the years there. And so for him to do any sort of documentary, maybe with wildlife, maybe with some of the, depending on what area they're in, makes perfect sense. And so I wouldn't be surprised if that one is one that actually comes to fruition.
Okay.
All right. Meantime, happy birthday, Prince George. Big birthday tomorrow. He turns 10. And how are the royals going to celebrate?
Well, George, Alexander, Louis. I mean, 10 years ago, I can't believe it. If past is precedent, we're going to get a photo, and then that's it. Royal birthdays, especially for kids, they're completely private, and I expect that to follow. But it hasn't stopped all the articles, because look, 10 is a big age, double digits now. So now they're talking about, like, is he going to go to Eton at 13? Is he going to go into the military as an adult? And I'm thinking, he's 10. Let him just enjoy himself. He's a kid.
For sure. Do you remember 10, Jeff?
Vaguely. Vaguely, yes.
All right, moving next to George's dad. It looks like Prince William is planning a visit to New York City.
So this is fascinating, because this is his big project with his Earthshot prize. And so these are for environmental causes. So he gives out every year 5 awards, £1 million, so about $1.7 million, to people who are making real environmental differences. And he couldn't go last year, because the Queen died, but he's going this year, and he's timing it so that New York in September is the General Assembly. It's Climate Week, so everyone who's involved in environmental change is there, and it leads up to the big ceremony, which is for the Earthshot prizes, which is going to be happening in Singapore in November.
Okay. All right, look forward to that. Meantime, when we have Patricia Treble here, we have to talk finances, royal finances, because we got reports that the royal budget may be slashed, and this is happening at the same time that we learn that Prince Charles, maybe the country's most famous landlord, made some $34 million, Patricia, from his real estate portfolio?
Yeah, so this is all, it depends on what headline you follow. So I'm going to break it down. There's a little bit of background involved. So basically what we're talking about, a lot of is the sovereign grant. And so this is the money that pays for the operations of the monarchy. And it is, how they calculate it, is a percentage of what's known as the Crown Estate, which is Crown lands in Canada. So, and what happened is Crown Estate is about to come into massive amounts of money because they're selling off leases for offshore rigs, offshore wind farms. So they are about to go crazy. And so that percentage that the sovereign grant get is naturally, as profits go up, their amount is going up. But the king said no, too much. So you saw competing headlines. So you saw the sovereign grant is going to be cut from 25% down to 12%. But then at the same time, people are doing the math and they're going, 12% of the new amount, how much is that? That's a big pot of money. And that's going to be going, though, to the restoration of Buckingham Palace, which is a big ongoing 10-year project. Then you've got other estates. So you've got that 34 million. That's called the Duchy of Lancaster. And this is where it just gets crazy. So that is a private ancient estate financing the monarch. And yeah, they did really well. Professionally run. He pays taxes on it. But they're involved in massive real estate. And so the Duchy of Lancaster, place you might know, Savoy Hotel in London, leasehold, Duchy of Lancaster. So, and so as they do well, that though pays for all the lesser royals, as they call them, who don't get their own financing. That pays for all their staff, all their work as working royals.
Okay.
It's confusing, but I think we're good.
Good. They're going to be okay? The royals are fine?
They're going to be
okay, yeah.
No naming rights. They're not going to have to sell anything.
Well, I was wondering with the restoration of Buckingham Palace, they should have done like an HGTV show. Like bring in the Property Brothers.
Oh, you know? I'm thinking that they have. I'll bet you there's a documentary there.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Patricia,
welcome.
who is also the royal accountant. Thank you so much.